What's up, Raiders? Bionic here. Welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we're doing another top 5. No, it's going to be a top 10. Because that's how good Block Debuffs is. Not a lot of champions in the game can do it, relatively, but they're all pretty good. And for that reason, because it is Block Debuffs. I've said this yesterday and I'll say it again. What wins matches in this game, it is literally the ability to place debuffs. Whether it's the debuffs that add damage, like increase or decrease defense, or like the decrease attack so that you can survive longer against the clan boss, or all the way into crowd control. That is how you win matches, right? So if you have the ability to cancel all of that with the block debuffs, well, chances are you won't be stopped, okay? So yesterday or the day before, I forget already, let's check real quick. We did the top 5 AOE buff removal, which I indicated with an icon of removing the block debuffs, right? And so today we're going to dedicate this video to the champions that can actually place the block debuffs. So in a sense, it's sort of a follow-up of this one, because if you want to strip the buffs, well, therefore you have a better chance of then being able to apply your own debuffs. But if you don't have a buff stripper, which is very hard to get, I've said that as well before, then you're in trouble. Because as soon as this goes up, there's not much you can do, right? So anyway, before we do though, let me quickly congratulate Plarium again for pulling this off right here. So you guys might have seen my fusion plan, free-to-play fusion plan for Vergumkar. Well, we've just had the champion training event, and it is harder than the previous ones. It's about almost like 600-700 points more for the first milestone, almost 1,000 more for the second one, 1,000 more for the third one, and a little bit less for the fourth one. How nice of them. So, I mean, it's going to be now that much harder to get Vergumkar. I am still going to try and get him as free to play. I know a lot of you guys have said he's just not worth it. I get that, but I've made it a goal to try and get literally all of them this year, okay? And we're that close to the end of the year, so I don't want to screw up now. Therefore, I got to work on all this. I got to make it all the way to here. Luckily, I did save some food, but anyway, stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to see if I can actually pull it off. Okay, so now let's go into this list right here, because as I said, I think you guys will like to see this. As I said, it is really important, okay? You've got to find a way to include this in your roster, at least at some point. Even the clan boss, you can benefit from this, because then you don't get stunned, all right? And heck, I'm even looking for a champion that can do that for me, at least one of them, and I'll explain to you guys why when I get to her. So, not top 5, we're going to do top 10, because like I said, there are so many of them, and I really believe that they all deserve to be on this list, or at least to some extent. So we'll start with the really obvious stuff, but the ones that we don't exactly use. Witness, right? Block debuffs, it's only one turn, and then it places a shield buff equal to 30% of this champion's max HP on all allies for 2 turns. It's alright-ish, but we just don't use this rare that much, although she can do it. If you're really desperate for this, and it's only a 1 turn on a 4-turn cooldown once booked, I mean, it could work, but not my favorite, right? The next one is one that we've all used, right? I think you have used her before, right? Spirit Host. Same thing, remove all debuffs and then place block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn. This is actually really solid. I've only seen, I think, so far 2 more other champions in the game that will remove all debuffs and then place a block debuffs. Guys, this is huge. Spirit Host early on is actually pretty solid, not to mention the 50% increase attack, which is typically what we got her for. But this right here, and then I'll get to the other 2 champions that can actually pull this off, is actually really, really good, okay? So definitely an honorable mention, although we don't really use her all the way into the end game, right? The next one is another rare, and we've seen her used a little bit more perhaps late last year, but early on she can still do a lot of great stuff. It is marked. Place blocked debuffs on all allies for 1 turn yet again, and a 60% increased defense. I think it's the 60% increased defense that people really liked about her because this is hard to get. Increased defense, the bigger version of this buff is actually pretty rare in the game. So for that reason, she was used quite a bit, all right? So again, if you're looking for an option early on, Marked is a very good one. The next one is in the Undead, Mr. Abs, I believe. It is Seducer, okay? So Seducer can kind of do the same thing here, but here's the funny part is that it's the 30% version of the increased defense along with block debuffs, but it is for 2 turns, okay? So that is really important. So compared to Marked, you're getting a longer block debuffs, but a smaller increased defense. Still, overall, this is a pretty solid skill to have, okay? The rest of his kit is also pretty interesting. So Seducer was used in some level 20 dungeons, if I'm not mistaken. I think Stu Gaming had a couple videos on this guy. He was using him a lot, right? Then we're going to go into the epics now. I'm going to say Grizzled Jarl. I'm not going to put him in the top 10. Don't hate me. I know he has a good kit all around, but I think there are slightly better options for block debuffs and decrease attack. So for that reason, didn't exactly make the cut this time. But again, keep me in check. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with this? But on this guy, we have the block debuffs for 1 turn. It is on a 3-turn cooldown though, which is pretty nice. And we have the 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. We have the AOE decrease attack, which is all right, but it's not on the A1. And that's my problem with this guy. He is okay-ish. However, not my favorite one. The next one is a legendary. I'm not putting her on the top 10. Why? Well, simply because it's conditional. And if it's conditional, it's a little bit harder to work with. It means you, especially with her, need a second champion to buff first before she buffs, before you get the block debuffs, and that's always very hard to do, okay? Even though she's extremely fast, she's an excellent champion all around, okay? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying she's not a good champion. Definitely one of the better champions in the game, but specifically for the block debuffs, I'm going to say she is not in the top 10, okay? Still, this would be a 2-turn, but the champions need to have increased defense on already before this works out, okay? So now let's go into my so-called top 10. Again, my list is, you know, my own opinion. If you don't agree, just let me know and we'll rectify it. So at number 10, I'm going to say it is Sepulchre Sentinel, and that is why Grizzled Jarl is not on that list, because she provides all of that as well. Even though it's a 4-turn cooldown, you can make her to a 4-to-3 ratio for the clan boss, making this one of the most sought after champions for the clan boss right now, even for me. I want this champion instead of my Battle Khazar because I can then combine multiple roles into one champion. Also, the decreased attack on the A1 Sepulchre Sentinel is absolutely amazing. I almost regret using mine for my Rotos fusion because then I got a second Rotos. So I could have had my Sepulchre Sentinel and a Rotos. Oh man, this game. Anyway, so Sepulchre Sentinel at number 10. The next one is going to be one of the champions that I use quite a bit. I actually like a lot. It is Mausoleum Mage. So we do have the block debuffs. It's only 1 turn. It's on a 3-turn cooldown, but we also get 30% increased crit rate and 60% increased defense, making him very useful for like defense type teams that also want to hit hard, aka my shield wall team, right, which I showed before. I'm using this guy in there with a lot of resistance. The only thing I hate about this guy is that even though it is worded this way, that it should be block debuffs, increased crit rate, increased defense, it's actually going at the end, which means against a Torment, it will trigger a Torment before you place the block debuffs. So stupid. Come on, Plarium, fix this already, please. The rest of his kit is pretty amazing, but basically that's what we really love about him. The next one is going to be one of the champions that everybody wants for the unkillable builds in the clan boss. It is Man-Eater with the unkillable and a block debuffs for 2 turns. And then you cycle through this, right? So for that reason alone, I think with the unkillable combined and specifically for the clan boss, Man-Eater deserves to be on that list. Therefore, obviously is there. And then we have a decreased attack on the A1 as well, which is pretty solid on top of that, okay? So I think a lot of people will run 2, or maybe you want to make a budget version of it where you use like a Painkeeper or something to reduce the cooldown. Whatever works, but still, Maneater is on my list. The next one is a Void Legendary, and I'm going to say that, yeah, she's a little bit lower in the list, simply because I think some of the other champions we will cover have a slightly better kit overall. But don't get me wrong, though, she's really, really solid. We do have the Revive All Dead Allies with the block damage. I mean, so... okay, maybe she would go up in the list eventually, but still, let me know what you think. We do have block debuffs on the A2, 2 turns. That can be reduced to a 3-turn cooldown. And then we also have a shield, which is pretty amazing. I mean, Blind Seer, I think she's a little bit lower because she's a Void Legendary and so much harder to get and work with, right? But anyway, Blind Seer on my list. Let me know what you think. The next one is, oh, it was still in there. It is going to be Madame Cerise, right? So we've covered her for a buff stripper, but yeah, on top of that, she has to place the block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns if any buff is stolen. It is conditional, but she's an epic, and because the rest of her kit is so amazing, I put her a little bit higher on the list because she can do all these things combined into one, right? So I don't know, maybe you guys won't agree that she's before Blind Seer, but again, because it's an epic, I think she deserves to be a little bit higher. All right, anyway, let me know what you think. Next one is a champion that we've seen a little bit more of recently, but she's one of the other 3 or other 2, aside from Spirit Host, that will remove all debuffs, so cleanse, and then place a block debuffs. This is huge, right? This you can afford to go second. And in fact, you almost want this to happen, right? Especially if you have her in an immunity set to start with, she's literally unstoppable, okay? So her turn comes, she cleanses everybody, she places a block debuffs, and then you're good to go, all right? Not to mention we have Revive on Death, making her very viable for those so-called teams where you're expecting to be hit first, right? Pretty solid. The passive is interesting. The rest of her kit is all right-ish. AOE A1 is always nice, but this skill right here is where it all is happening, right? Okay, the next one is in the orcs. It is going to be Warlord. Warlord has, first of all, this skill right here, which is Unstoppable Crowd Control. I've covered him before in other top 5 lists. And then he has on top of this skill right here. Even though it's a block debuffs for 1 turn, it's on a 3-turn cooldown. We also have a huge shield, and we also have a heal, making this a very, very annoying champion or team to deal with, especially if he takes a turn. Chances are you're not going to be able to nuke a second time around and take down the team, okay? So Warlord is pretty high on the list. I see him all the time in Classic Arena, Tag Arena, the whole thing, right? Used by everybody. Everybody that has him will definitely use him. The next one is in the Demon Spawn. I did put Duchess before, because she's not Void, but like her kit overall is just so great, and like the increased attack works very well with nuking teams at the same time. We have the block debuffs, but she's one of the only ones to have the perfect veil on top of that. Then we also have the AOE Revive All Dead Allies, the continuous heal, the shield on the A1, then we've got the passive. It's just so many things, right? And a decent aura as well. So for that reason, obviously Duchess is on my list and very high at the same time. Next one I'm going to put is in the Skinwalkers faction. So that would be number 2. I'm going to say not Longbeard, sorry. I'm going to say it's Hawkhorn Smashlord because he's one of the only other champion to remove all debuffs and then go into the block debuffs as well as a heal. Okay, so I think this is really, really solid. The ability to do both at the same time is something that, like I said, is extremely rare in this game, and he's the only legendary to pull it off. He can also deal a decent amount of damage with this skill right here, but mainly we love him for this, right? So again, you might not agree with my order. Just let me know in the comments below, and we'll correct it if it needs to be corrected. Finally, the last one on the list, of course, you guys know who it is. Even though she's a Void legendary, it is Sifi the Lost Bride. Like her skill itself is, I mean, it's okay. Like, I almost compare this to Mausoleum Mage. Instead of like increased speed, we'd get crit rate, but it's the rest of her kit. It's this right here, the sleep on the A1. It's just, man, this is so annoying to deal with. Not to mention this passive right here that works with Rotos, of course. and the increased attack, increased crit rate here. I mean, she's just so good. She's currently the best champion in the game, still is, even post-nerf. So for that reason, she's still number 1 on this list, okay? So, guys, that's going to sum it up. Let me show you the completed list here. So we went with Sifi, Hawkhorn, Smashlord, Duchess, Warlord, Skytouch Shaman, Madame Cerise. Then we had Blind Seer, Maneater, Mausoleum Mage, Sepulchre Sentinel, Manaya, Grizzled Jarl, Seducer, Marked Host, and Marked Spirit Host, and Witness. All right, so I get it, right? You might not exactly agree with all this, but guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two from this video. Let me know which one of these champions are you currently using, why, and where. As always, I will catch you guys later.